Woosah.
Welcome to another week of Token. I am Donna.
Steven, yo.
We're back with another one.
Back.
So we're gonna jump into it because Steven got to go pick up his friend from the airport. So we don't want to hold anyone hostage. Steven, what is Token?
Token is the place where you gotta outrun them bees at every corner. Otherwise you get caught up.
I think
caught up.
Caught up.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. The caught up, the play on like getting caught up. Oh, I like that. That was good. That's creepy. So if you haven't guessed, we're gonna be doing Candyman, the new one. So it's a little bit different because normally we do the films where it's like, hey, we want to do the film where there's only like one white person in it. But this time, we're like, whatever, it's our show. We do what we want to do. We're gonna watch a film and we're going to talk about the storyline, but mainly I think what we kind of, what me and Steven have been, I'm sorry, I'm chewing my own tongue, you guys, and I'm shaking my computer. Okay, what we're going to be doing is talking about kind of the storyline of like how I believe blackness plays in this story, which was really interesting. So, Steven, because you're better at than me, can you give a synopsis of Candyman?
So the Candyman, this is the 2020 version, which is not a reboot but more of a continuation, spiritual successor of the original one with starring Tony Todd that we all know and love and fear, and this one is written and directed by Nia DaCosta, which is like really great 30-year-old female Black director, like just tackling these big ass projects. Anyway, written by her, Jordan Peele and Wynn Rosenfeld, and it's about a struggling young Black artist who's struggling to like come up with his next big piece for a gallery show, and discovers the legend and myth of the Candyman, and he's living in the gentrified Cabrini Green neighborhood in Chicago. And if you know Common or any Black rappers from Chicago, you'll recognize the name Cabrini Green. But he's trying to find a new inspiration, a new muse for his new projects, and he discovers the myth of the Candyman, and he ends up diving head first into it and starts upending his life as more parts of the legend he discovers are real, and people around his life start thinking he's spiraling, but he's getting deeper into the legend as the legend is starting to come back alive, and ultimately like changes his life.
So let's start off with our rating. So a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being amazing, 1 being trash, what would you give this one?
I honestly give this one a 9. I like this one a lot. 9 and a half. I like this one a lot.
I would give it probably, I thought it was just so well done, probably between 8.5, 9. I was very surprised. You know what it kind of reminded me of? Have you ever seen Nightcrawler?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, so I think what was great about that movie is it's very simple storytelling, but done and like a very neat, succinct story. You know what I mean? Like it's not a huge, to me, this wasn't like a ton of bells and whistles, but what it had was just like tone. Like I felt from beginning to end, like whoever created this knew exactly how they wanted it to look, feel. Like I just felt very pieced out very nicely. Like it felt like a simple like story of this tale, but also not simple in like the themes of it. So I want to get into that. Like, what are some of the things for you that popped out about the film?
The biggest thing for me that pops out is that they did a really good job of incorporating the previous Candyman, not just the original movie, but all the other sequels too. And they're back, the characters in each one of those sequels. But the theme of who are you, which I'm noticing in a lot of movies I've been watching lately, like who are you is what the art dealer asks the main character in this, played by Yahya Abdul Mateen, who's a fucking great actor, by the way. And he plays Anthony McCoy. He they keep asking him, who are you? And as we go through the movie, you realize that's what the whole premise of the movie is. As he's learning about the Candyman mythos and himself, he learns how he's actually directly connected to it, which he had no idea until everything starts unraveling. And, you know, as an artist, you're always being asked, who are you as an artist? What is your art? What are you trying to say with your art? And I think with this one, the whole theme of who are you really becomes prominent as he starts to pursue this new direction in his art, and the inspiration behind it starts to reveal who he really is, because he learns he is the boy that that the previous Candyman was trying to snatch in the first place.
Mm-hmm. So I haven't seen the why was he trying to snatch him in the first film?
I had to go back and rewatch the OG one. I haven't seen it forever, but it's great because they kind of explain it in this one that the Candyman, that's the other thing I really like about this one, is that Candyman has always been like a horror, like a scary villainous character, but this one they really emphasize the idea that the Candyman is kind of an anti-hero. He's a black anti-hero.
Oh, totally.
Because his quest for vengeance all roots in the way they've treated Black people the entire time. Alexa, dismiss. God damn. And
that's what you need to do, bro.
Alexa, dismiss. God damn. This these reminders all of a sudden. I forgot. But that's what they're there for. And so, I think I think I see I really lost my track, but yeah, I think it does a great job showing that Candyman he's a villain to most, but he's also an anti-hero to some, in the sense that he is there to like seek vengeance on behalf of all those that have been slaughtered and murdered by the white power structure. And he needs to get Anthony's character, because he's trying to recruit. Basically, they got to keep the Candyman, like, not just legend alive, but the Candyman figure around, so that he can continue to seek vengeance. And that's why he wanted him in the first place.
Yeah, I thought that overall theme was so good because it makes it very relevant. I feel like I knew the Candyman's original story, and to me, I felt like he's always been like kind of an anti-hero, and always been like someone that you empathize with.
Yeah, especially the way he's created, right? It's like he wanted to become this thing, but a Black man is in a place where he ends up becoming the victim of like white terrorism, and then he, his soul is not going to rest now, because he's got to seek vengeance, and none of these Candyman, because there's multiple Candymen, right? I think there's 5 of them over the course of the story's background, but each one is involuntarily becoming the Candyman because of the horrors, that the way they die in these horrific ways.
So I think for me, when I was watching it, which I thought that was so cool, the tie-in between all the different stories, and it's very relevant. You were talking about like the theme of, and the idea of like, who are you? But I think something that also is like a big like story point was just kind of the gentrification of like Black people in general, and kind of the disrespect, right? Because as his character shows his artwork, you just have these white people who laugh at and disrespect his work. And they're also like, when they're talking to him, they're digging into like, basically get into, it's like they basically are digging and they're like, you need to be Blacker. That's what I felt like. I felt like his Blackness wasn't enough in the way that it was presented, and they like it always felt to me like they were trying to dig deeper into like, well, we need more Black or more authentic, more real. And it's like funny to hear these white people make commentary about a Black experience, or like what it means to be Black. Like you have this white woman who talks about, well, you're the one gentrifying, like basically blaming this Black man who's just trying to do his art and trying to like build upon what he has in him, and be like, oh, you're a gentrifier, it's your fault. And it's like,
because he's an artist, right?
Exactly.
Not because he's Black, he's gentrifying because he's an artist. And then
he's
he
an
has to go and
artist.
explain why people say artists are gentrifying in the first place, right? And I'm just going to pause you because I wrote that down because I thought it was so well. Because he tells her that he says that he says that you know how gentrification works with artists is that the city cuts off the community and waits for it to die, then invites the developers in and says, hey, you artists come in, preferably white, stick it out a little longer. In a couple of years, we'll bring you a Whole Foods, right? Because he's saying that's why artists end up moving to places like that that have been gentrified in the first place, is because they cut off all the minorities that live there, let the area die so they can buy the land back cheap, and developers can make a profit by telling all these preferably white artists come in, live cheap for a while, and we'll build this area up, and then we can all make money, right? But
Yeah.
the original,
Oh, go ahead. No, I was saying, and on that
but
point,
the
I was just
original
saying,
people that were there are no longer there and don't have anything, any ownership or stake in it, right?
yeah. And then in a way, on just to add to that, it's like the way that he was treated in that environment is as if he wasn't welcome there.
No, absolutely, right?
Which is
No, go ahead,
no, I was just gonna say, like, it's interesting that then, in this area now that's been gentrified, he's not only is he not welcomed and not appreciated, but then he's also like made to feel like it's his fault that it even happened in the first place. Which is I feel like when it comes to gentrification, or at least I knew this guy who was like so positive about gentrification, and he literally said these people don't deserve this area. Look how they treated it. And it's
oh
like
yeah,
there's a lot. Oh my God, it was bad. It was really bad.
oh
Um,
no.
but I think people think that. They think because since they're there and they have the Whole Foods and they have all this, and that means that they deserve it more. When in reality, those things weren't even given to those people who were there because people decided to make them food deserts. People decided to
Yes,
take their stuff away from it. It's not that
and to remove resources,
Mhm.
right?
It's not that they don't deserve it. It's not that they shouldn't have it. It's that it's not being given to them to even live with, have, appreciate, or whatever. And so I think the process on a very surface level makes people think like, oh, this is perfect because look how better the area is now because of
We're
it.
making it better, yeah. Which is
Exactly.
exact colonizer mentality. That's 100% colonizer mentality. We're making it better because you didn't appreciate it when you had it,
Right.
even though
Yeah. But even
no,
if
I
we
mean, even though
yeah.
the reason it's bad in the first place is because, like you said, it's a food desert. There's no resources. The city doesn't
Yeah.
pay for repaving the roads. The city doesn't give you street lights. The people that are there can't afford, like, there's restaurants that are there in the first place, but they're not going to be supported as much as the fancier restaurants because people can't spend as much money because people there are lower income. Like it's all a big fucking, it's all tied together.
Yeah.
But colonizers come in and think, oh, we're making it better because you couldn't treat it like it deserved to be treated.
Yeah. And I think when you get to the nitty gritty and the root of like why that even happens in those communities, it's because America putting their foot on our necks, right? It's like you have the story of the successful Black man who was a painter, and then one white woman decided to lie, which is a story a lot that happens a lot, and it destroys his whole life and creates this like character. And the way that they framed it in this is that Candyman is, yes, he's doing these killings, but like he is a symbol, a reminder of how Black men have been scapegoats, have been tortured, and have been killed repeatedly
Yeah,
by the system, by white supremacy, by white people. I wish he only had white victims. That would make me feel better. Not I wish he didn't kill anyone that said Candyman. Even if
yeah.
someone Black said Candyman, I want Candyman to jump out and be like,
Like,
come on, young bro.
like
You
I
know,
see you. I see
yeah,
you.
I
You
see
know, I
you.
got better things to do.
Yeah, like if you're Black and you say Candyman, he like gives you advice. I think that would have full circle, right? For us to be immune to Candyman's actions, I think that would have been only right.
That
But
would
for
have actually been really interesting. Like if the kid said, those little Black kids said it, and like he walked and the brother walked in, and could, instead of seeing all the blood splatter, but like the boy walked in and saw them like sitting down talking with somebody that he couldn't see,
Mhm.
right? Like just getting advice or whatever. Like he's talking with
Yeah,
them, but nobody can see that shit. And then you leave and like they're like, oh, we were just talking to blah blah blah. We are talking to the old to Burke or whoever, the old Black guy. It wasn't
yeah.
Burke, but like that would actually would have been an interesting spin on it.
I think it would have made things a little clearer,
Yeah.
honestly. If he
Yeah.
only killed the white people, I think it would have made, because if you think about this film, all the killings are white folks.
Yeah,
I,
yeah, for the
I
most
feel
part.
like they kind of like noticed that because they only had like one killing of someone black, and that was like in the past. And
Yeah,
then the one other black character that did it, he just became Candyman. He wasn't killed by him, he just became him, which I actually think is a better idea, is that Candyman possesses the bodies of black boys or black men. Like I think that would have been like more to me if it was like his whole spill. It's like with white people, he'll kill them if they play with it. For black people, he's protective or he embodies them.
yeah, that would have been it. But you know how even I mean I would you know how it is. You ain't gonna be able to make a movie where
Just
you're
killing white folks.
only killing white folks. Like that shit ain't gonna get no distribution.
But that I think that would be a big change I had, because I always felt like Candyman was sympathetic and his story and stuff, but I never got why he killed like black people. I'm like, yo, we're with you.
Yeah, you supposed to be protecting us.
Yeah.
That's but
And
that's
you
what
know
makes
what? They kind of alluded to that though. If you look at how it
yeah,
ends, right?
yeah.
When she calls him herself, who he kill?
All the
All the white
cops.
folks, all the
Yeah,
cops,
all the
right? And
cops.
he doesn't
But
kill her.
yeah, but that's also tied into one, that's his wife, right? And two, he's there to avenge. That was his primary reason for existence. Like once he's created, is that white terrorist, like patriarchal power structure. It's specifically there to stop them as much as or seek vengeance on them, right? Because they're kind of that whole history of policing, slave catching,
Yeah.
like all that is tied into it. So that was kind of him serving his true purpose there at the end too. And
Yeah.
she is protected because not only is she the new Candyman's like wife, but she's also being victimized in the moment herself, right? He's like, oh, you're gonna tell them this, right? I mean, we had to. He was there trying to kill you, and you saw us like walk in, and we were trying to tell him put his weapon down, and he didn't want to, and we were there just to help you, right? And he's like, or we could say you were an accomplice and that you were there with him, and you're lucky you made out alive because we were confused, didn't know what was going on. And she was like, oh, I'll just say whatever you want to say. Just let me see the mirror, right? But I do really like that Burke, like you said, Burke was explaining to him like, look, they're all real. All the Candyman is real. They're all real. And that's how we deal with the fact that these things happened and are still happening. And he's not talking about just Candyman, but he's speaking on a larger form, like black folks being kicked out of their homes and hunted and lynched by this white power structure. Candyman is how we deal with the fact that all this is still happening and has been happening, right?
Yeah.
They did a lot of really good, I think, social commentary through the buildup of mythology that has to kind of be formed around these real life events, right?
I'm curious who wrote the original, if it was someone white, which it probably was.
I think it was because it's John Carpenter, right? When the original one.
I have no idea. But like I feel like because a black woman, black man, black woman basically put this one together. And I feel like with that you have more of an understanding of black people in these situations. And I think you probably even more can accurately create the mythology for this character. And so I think it's, I think they probably came into it and they had to work with what the rules have already been there. But I honestly feel like if someone black had created this from the beginning, they would have it where he was more of a protective figure for black people than like someone who just kills anyone who says his
Oh
name.
yeah, yeah. The
Because
original,
yeah.
no, the original was Clive Barker. I almost forgot, not John Carpenter. It's Clive Barker, based on I think a short story by Bernard Rose, who's another white. He's a white guy, but I
I
do remember reading that John Carpenter specifically wanted to bring in, I think, some of those elements because he thought it was like a poignant way to do it. I forgot. I have to go back and read the article, but it was a conscious decision on John Carpenter's part. I know that.
Yeah, but I think by having black creatives create this piece, I think that's why it feels so real. I think why the
Yeah.
commentary feels so real. And unfortunately I think they're working with mythology created by white people. So like some of the elements is like it don't make sense. Like this for a character to have this backstory to also kill black people, it don't make sense to me. Like he would just kill, like especially if his whole story is he represents like all the black men that have been tortured and killed for reasons that were literally just because they were black. Like it wouldn't make sense for how he was doing his killing. Like, but I feel like that's, you know, you got to work what you have. And I think they definitely tried to, and how they framed how this story worked out, right? And I think also another thing that protected her is they had the element of, also, I said also twice, but but I was really excited to see the original Candyman's face at the end where he tells her to tell the story. I was like, oh, this is such a great like callback moment of like the guy who's played it and done it so well.
Tony Todd.
So good.
Yeah, with that voice.
Yeah, his voice is so creepy. Yeah.
It is. He and I think honestly at the end when when Yaya's character becomes a new Candyman, Anthony's character, and like he's taking care of all the police when he's walking by the car windows, I
Yes.
think the reflection is each window is a reflection of the different Candyman from the past, which
So
is
good.
crazy. I was like, what? I rewound it probably like 3 times.
It's so
Right.
so I want to get into how the look of the film is.
So I think for me the look was really is it was fascinating because it centers around the art world, and so much of it is like sleek galleries, like modern housing, a lot of that. But since Candyman itself is brought about by calling into a mirror, it was interesting because I read an article that Nia DaCosta was saying that they wanted to work with reflections and they wanted to work with darkness and light. So what you like with what you see and what you don't see. And she also wanted to exploit like the real locations and shoot in places that really existed, which is why it was great. They actually shot in like the old Cabrini Green housing projects. But I thought like their reflections, they played, like I said, with seeing the reflection of each Candyman of the past when the new one's walking by the cop car, but then also the mirrors, and of course the play in mirrors when he's walking outside when he's walking in the hallway of the art critic. Like they do such a good job with the when the poor little black girl's in the bathroom and all those girls are getting slaved, and you see the compact mirror and just those legs floating by. Like you see, they do such a good job of using reflections and then using the haunting like images of the Candyman with everything else that I thought it was just if done really well, you know.
Yeah, I was so impressed with like I felt it had a very distinct look. It was really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, the way it's shot, the way it's laid out, the pacing, it was very beautiful. It felt very intentional. Also, I want to point out in that bathroom scene, right, with the black girl who's getting teased by the white girls, you see how they had all the white girls die and the black girl didn't. I know she didn't
Uh-huh.
say it, but there's like this theme of like protection around us. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
throwing that out there. Like they like kind of had that kind of feeling like we're protected in a way, except when that one did die. Um
And I have to go back and see if that one did something because that's the
the
thing is like
Candyman, he's in the bathroom, she's like, I'm gonna do it, and then you just hear a thud. Like the child didn't even fight, the child just thudded, and the
because
child was
they
dead.
Candyman just be sneaking up and going for the throat with that hook.
The little girl was dead, and then the Candyman was like with his hook, and he was like, shh.
Uh-huh.
He was like, okay. Oh man, this and one thing you didn't point out that's also just visually amazing is the puppets.
Yeah, my
Oh,
honestly, my favorite part.
oh my gosh, amazing. It was the best part. I mean, visually, like it was the most like kind of unexpected,
Yeah,
really great. I don't know if the word is trope that they use or like visual
I think it's a visual aid, right?
visual aid, what they call it. It's like when you have something recurring, it's like your visual style, what lack of a better word, visual style that they had. The puppets was just so neat. I wonder how they probably should have researched that. I wonder how they came to decide to do that, because is that something, oh, I probably should have researched this. I don't know if there's something from the past films, but the way that it was utilized in this was just so beautiful.
I
Uh,
don't think it's from the past films. So in what I did read was that Nia sat down with Jordan Peele and they were trying to figure out how to incorporate flashback scenes that give the needed information, that crucial exposition, without doing typical flashback scenes, which is what they didn't want to do. And so they worked with this modern cinema house or something out of Chicago, and that's how they came up with the puppet theater. Is they wanted something that gave you like an old school feel, like a old timey feel, but they didn't want to do flashbacks because the original one I think did do those flashbacks, but they wanted to do something different, and that's how they decided to incorporate the puppet theater, and it ended up becoming like the perfect way to show the history of the Candymen and how they became about, but still keep it creepy and gothic because you know the whole Candyman is like a dark gothic figure too, and so that's why they chose that, which I thought was genius because it, like you said, it's my favorite part of it.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. It's visually stunning. It doesn't feel, because flashbacks sometimes can feel heavy-handed. They
Yeah.
can feel like a disruptor of story. But it was just a great, like it was exciting to see it, and the puppeteering and like the puppets themselves were so detailed. So like, at the end where it's going through all the stories of the past Candyman,
Mhm.
and it's like each of them, there's just little details of like why they're different, right? They're skulls. You see the different
Mhm.
skulls of the different men. And so when he's in that room and he has all those paintings, he was painting all the different Candymen, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's what it was.
And you can see because different hairstyles, different skull shapes. They did such a good job of like really bringing that out.
It was really
Um, yeah, and even with the puppets, you can see each one. There's a little boy in one of them. There's Daniel Robitaille or whatever, who is the one from the original movie.
Yep, you
Uh,
saw his story. You saw the story of someone getting dragged by a car. You saw the little boy. You saw and these are all stories that are reflective of stories that we've heard, stories that we know about and stuff. And so I have a question. So something that I was thinking about, I know Steven's on a little bit of a time limit. He's being a good friend. He has to go to the airport.
that's
But
fine.
real quick before we break out, I was thinking about the idea of Black trauma, right? Like we had that whole discussion and people were really upset with them because it was about Black trauma. But I felt like this film was about Black trauma. And I'm like, what makes, and I love them. We've had this conversation. I think them was very necessary. I thought it was good. But my question is, what makes this different from that? Or is it not different? Or is it different because it was packaged by someone Black, or it's an old story that we've already seen? Like, why is it that this isn't Black trauma?
Well, this is funny because I thought originally you weren't as happy with them as we thought you would be. So
Well, them the show or them this?
the show, the show.
No, I liked them. I liked them. I felt, and when we talked about it back then, I felt that it was kind of unfair, the criticism that them was getting. And I think honestly, I feel the problem with them is not so much them as has to do with the fact that like as Black people, there's not a lot of variety in the storytelling avenues that we get.
Mm-hmm.
So we feel like we see a lot of slave stories. We see a lot of the way that racism has hurt us and stuff like that, which I think are very necessary stories to tell. But I can see for us as a people being tired of that always being told, because
Yeah.
it's, you go to watch entertainment and you're just being reminded of like all the shitty things out there, right? Like when I watched this, like, and I texted you, I was like, I'm upset. I already was like, I told Steven today I'm obsessed with Big Brother, and I already was upset at white people in general, because of their racism. And like watching this, I'm just reminded of like how trash like their behavior is, and like, but it made me think of that. It's like, why is this accepted or is this not accepted? Is it accepted because it was a vehicle done completely by Black people, or is it not accepted? I don't know. Do you know what
Oh,
I'm
I
saying?
think. Well, I don't remember what. I know them was produced by Lena Waithe, written, directed. I don't remember the director, but it was written by a Black. What's his name? It was written by a Black writer. I don't know what the whole makeup of this team was. I think the biggest deal, I think the biggest complaint for them that Black critics and fans had was that it showed too much visually of it did not that it showed like the system that Black people have had to live within that treats Black people bad. I think it's that it too much visual Black gore on the Black bodies that it showed. I think that's where people had a salty taste in their mouth because a lot of that we've already seen in real life and in what's, you know, obviously with people, what's happened with like uh God damn, I can't think of the little boy's name right now.
Emmett Till.
Emmett Till, thank you, and who they're making a movie about. But like between what's happened with Emmett Till, James Byrd, and all these real life black bodies that we've seen, I think them showed too much visceral, actual like gore that was the part of the trauma that people didn't want to repeat and see. And I think with this one, they showed, and Nia also said this in an interview, was that they purposely didn't want to show too much explicit like gore. They leave your mind to fill that in, and they would cut it when it would get to like the visual parts of that. It would show blood, but you wouldn't actually see a whole lot of like the graphicness of the hooks. Like with I think one or two of the girls victims, they show their throat, but for the most part they didn't show a whole lot of it, right? Like they would show the before and after when Burke is cutting Anthony's arm and stuff and shoving the hook in there, but they didn't show a whole lot of the gore that you typically see in a lot of horror movies, especially slasher movies. They left that to the imagination, which is something Jordan Peele like loves to do anyway. He doesn't show a whole lot of it; he leaves it to your imagination, and I think that's why this one is received a little bit differently than stuff like them, because most people had a big issue with specifically the visceral display of
That baby scene.
trauma that the body.
You saw it.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
it was that baby scene.
Yeah, that'll fuck you up. And that's
I was watching it with a friend, and she literally stopped, and she's like, and she had a baby, and she's like, I can't watch this anymore.
Yeah. See, you
and like I like support it, but like a part of me was like, come on, girl, let's get through this. But
yeah. I mean, with horror is gonna show gore.
Yeah.
But you know, there's certain parts when if it's horror based on a real life situation like this, where people as a community are not gonna want to be repeating that type of stuff by seeing it explicitly.
I will say also a lot of the harm done was on white bodies.
Yeah. Which changes, because you're used to seeing that in horror movies for sure, right?
Yeah. And so it's like we're not seeing us. We were hearing the stories of the past of what happened to us, but we weren't seeing them in real time.
And the stories alone is enough trauma.
Yeah.
Enough traumatizing situation to to bring the horror out, that you don't need to show the specific body horror too, you know.
Right.
And Candyman's it. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and I think that's why the puppets played too, right? Like it covered those gruesome details. It told you these gruesome stories, but like, and it was still disheartening, obviously, and triggering, but it wouldn't have been as bad as if we had to see an actual child or actual, you know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's a running theme, right? Is the fact that Black bodies are disrespected and thrown away.
Treated inhumane.
Exactly. Yeah. Woo.
And so, yeah, let's go. And that's why I think like this Candyman does still deal with a little bit of the body horror, but more of like the honeycomb type, like, which does trigger me because I have this trypophobia where I don't like stuff that's like bubbled or kind of like honeycombs I'm fine with, but like a lot of undersea creatures and shit that have that weird skin texture that's like all bubbled or honeycomb type, like what he had on his body when he was becoming, and that's the type of stuff that it triggers a reflex in me. Like I want to run from it. Like it gives me the chills and like it makes me want to throw.
Definitely body horror too.
Yeah, and they did it like there are certain scenes, and even this one that I'm like having to kind of look away because I have this thing where I cannot deal with textures of a certain type like that. And I see that they're reflecting the honeycomb from like bees and stuff, but they get close to that with me in this. Oh yeah, but it's like a thing I have with a lot of stuff, and like I can't. But at least it wasn't like some of the same body horror that you would get from like, you know, showing explicitly what happened to the people of the past. So
yeah, I loved it. So we're gonna wrap it up. As always, you can find us on the socials, the Instagrams, the YouTubes, the Spotify.
I think Spotify, but definitely the iTunes.
Yes, the iTunes definitely.
Podcast, you know, everywhere.
Somewhere.
If we're not there, let us know.
Yeah, let us know if we're not there. But y'all have a good day. And as always, you have any suggestions, please let us know. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what we're saying. And I think honestly, Stephen, I think we'll probably move forward in doing a mix of things where it's like we're the token, but also films that are created by Black people and just exploring all of that. I think we can do, I think we can, it's our show.
It is.
So we
And
can
we
do
can, now I do what I want. We
I
can
do
do
what
what
I
I
want.
want. We can do
Bye.
it.